right, guys, we have the next problem on section 1.3. This is problem number 25. It's actually going to involve a little bit more algebra, but it's exactly the same concept as the problem in problem 29. And the reason it's going to involve a little bit more work because we have a square, which is a quadratic function instead of a linear function. So our function f of x is x squared minus x. Okay, so again, we are asked to find the, so once you get the difference quotient, the simplified form of a difference quotient, which usually involves x and h, then of course the second part, part B, is pretty much plug in. Okay, so I'll just do one of the rows in there, you can do the rest. But right now, the most important part, or at least the one that involves the most of the work, is part A, which is to find a difference quotient. So let me again remind you, the difference quotient is f of x plus h minus f of x all over h. So again, from algebra, as you know, if f of x is this, to find f of any expression, like including x plus h, we're going to replace all the x's with what's inside the parentheses, which is x plus h. Okay, so it's going to be, I'm going to put that in bracket. So it'll be x squared, which is going to be, in this case, x plus h squared, minus x, which again is going to be x plus h, except don't forget to put it in parentheses because that negative has to be distributed. And sometimes actually a student asks about it because they forget to distribute and they don't get the same answer as back of the book. Anyway, so this is your f of x plus h minus f of x. Of course, f of x itself, again, put that in parentheses because you do have more than one term and there is a negative in front. And then all of that over h, okay? So, and the rest is going to be pretty much algebra. So I'm sure by now all of you know how to square x plus h. It's going to involve FOIL method. So it's going to be x plus h times x plus h. So I'll let you double check that from your algebra. So as you multiply x plus h times x plus h, you should get, by FOIL method, x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. Okay, so that's going to be your the quantity x plus h squared. And I just did that by basically FOIL method, multiplying. We're going to distribute the negative here. That become minus x minus h. Also, I'm going to distribute the negative here. That become minus x squared. And then minus times minus, which become plus x. This is why it's important for you to put the terms in parentheses so you can distribute the negative to remove the parentheses, okay? So now there's going to be some cancellation. The x squared cancels the negative x squared. The negative x cancels the positive x. So basically all you're left with at the end of the day is going to be on upstairs. The numerator is 2xh plus h squared minus h. And then all over h. Remember I said in last video that in these types of problem, the h on the bottom will always get canceled. So as you can see, every term upstairs has a factor of h. So I'm going to factor the h out. So as you factor h from 2xh, leaves you with 2x. As you factor h from h squared, leaves you with just the h. Also, as you factor h from h, leaves you with the quotient of 1. Now, as you can see, there it is. So now this h cancels that h. And that's going to happen just about all the time, okay? So now, this time, you can see your difference quotient involves x and h, right? So let me just write it down here. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and move it upstairs. So our difference quotient, in this case, which is part A, basically will turn into, after you cancel the h's, it becomes 2x plus h minus 1, okay? So this is a simplified form of difference quotient for this function. I'm just going to do one of the rows in part B. Of course, they ask you to fill up the table. So the first row says that x is 5. This is actually pretty easy because you're going to plug in. But let me just show you one of them at least. And then the h is 2. That's for your first row. And you do the same thing for the other rows. So to find that expression, we're going to plug in. So 2 times x, which of course is 5, plus h, which in this case is 2, and then minus 1. So this is what we get for our difference quotient, because this is what we got. So we're just going to plug in the x value, which is 5, and then the h, which is 2, and then of course minus 1 is there. So now the last step is to basically calculate that. So 2 times 5 becomes 10. 2 minus 1, of course, is 1, and 10 plus 1 is 11. So your first row in that table for part B, the difference quotient will be 11, okay? So, but again, for next row, you do the same thing, except you're going to have x5. I believe h is 1, so you just plug in 1 in place of h, and then compute, okay? So that's really pretty much the substitution. So the most important part, at least the longest part, was part A to get the difference quotient, simplified form of difference quotient, okay? So anyway, I hope this helps.